Okay, so in this video we're going to look at your very first lesson, so what we call the controls lesson. But your very first lesson, which will probably take place away from outside your house. It depends on where you live and things. A lot of instructors will drive you to the site or to the place where you're going to go through the basic controls of the car, and then probably lead on to driving the car a little bit, maybe around the car park, maybe up and down the road. It really depends on where you live and your instructor and how long the lesson is, and there's lots of variables. So let's look at the basic controls of the car and why it's really important to take a little bit of time and learn how to set yourself up and be comfortable and be able to see and all those things. Okay, so the first thing that's going to happen is your instructor will probably drive you to the place, as I said just now. So the first thing to do is obviously get in the passenger seat, which I'm sure you're used to, and to make sure the seatbelt is on. And we'll go through the seatbelt a little bit more in a minute, but to make sure it's not twisted and it's properly in its place. There's going to be two pedals on the floor, more than likely. Most instructors have dual controls, and that's what they're called. And they're a dual brake and a dual clutch. We don't have an accelerator, because we probably wouldn't need to accelerate out of trouble. We may need to brake you or put the clutch down to stop the car stalling, for example. So they're down in the footwell there by your feet. So it's a really important thing not to be pressing those pedals, okay, because you're going to surprise your instructor. So keep your feet away from them, tuck them under the seat or just keep them either side, but don't be tempted to press those at all, okay. When you get to the site, the area where you're going to have the first lesson, it sounds a bit patronising this, but we just need to cover it. It's important that when you get out that you check to make sure you're not going to open the door on any pedestrians or things like that. So make sure you look behind you. You can use the mirror, the side mirror, and make sure that you're not going to knock anyone off their bike or anything like that. So good check, and make sure the door's shut behind you in case someone wants to come along and use the footpath, because your instructor might talk to you at the back of the car, for example, about securing the back door, making sure that it's not open, otherwise you could lose your shopping or small children or the dog as you go along the road. Wouldn't be brilliant. Unlikely to have those things on your first lesson, but all these things are built on for when you're driving on your own, and they're just laying the foundations of good practice, as we call it. Okay, so get that door shut, and then the instructor will probably come round, meet you on the pavement or the side of the car if you're in the car park, and then talk you through getting in the car. Again, a lot of this stuff is obvious, but it's not obvious if you don't know, and we don't know, obviously we make these videos what people know and don't know, so we have to presume you don't, but if you do, great. Then what the instructor will do is ask you to get in the car, in the driver's seat. Hopefully the instructor's put the seat all the way back and taken the keys out. If she or he hasn't taken the keys out, then don't touch the keys, because you might start the engine and frighten yourself. Car could be in gear, you could jump forward. So a phrase that I use is don't touch or fiddle. So just sit in the seat, wait for the instructor to come around the other side, and then you won't frighten yourself, or the instructor will drive off down the street, which wouldn't be good, and you wouldn't be insured for that either. So the instructor's going to get back in the seat, and now the first thing he's going to go through is, some instructors use these letters and some don't, but I tend to use DHSSSM. And basically what that means is the first thing to do is get you to check the door. So, to make sure this door is shut. Some instructors will leave the door slightly open so you can tell the difference. And actually, I'll do that. So the door isn't open, but there's two catches, so it's shut, but it's not really shut tight. So, if I put my left hand on there, you can see my left hand's going on there now, and give it a rattle, you can hear that rattling, you can probably see it there. So that means that's not shut properly. The reason I use my left hand is if I open the door, which I'm going to do by looking behind me to make sure, again, I'm not going to knock any cyclists off and make a good video, but it's not ideal. I'll put my right hand in the door lever, open it, have a look behind me. You can see it only goes so far because my arm's not long enough. See here, there's not much of a gap. Whereas if I use my right hand, the door could swing open and take a cyclist off. Talk a cyclist, one coming there. So I use my left hand in the cup, and then I can open it and give it a good shot, and you can hear that's nice and shut. I can rattle it now, and it's nice and shut, and we're not going to fall out when we go round and round about something, so it wouldn't be great on your first lesson, would it, to come back in an ambulance. Silly things, but they're just worth noting. They're things that you will need to do. And if you were to say, we're not worried about the test at this point, but just give an example, if you were to drive around your test with your door half open like that, you would fail the test. And I have had a pupil do it. So make sure that's always shut, okay, because it can open, the second catch can not work properly or break, and the car door swings open. I've seen it happen with a car coming towards me. So we check the door is shut. So that's D. Then you've got the H for handbrake. So that's this thing here, and I'll flash up a picture of that in a moment. And basically, not going to touch or fiddle with that, because if you put that down again, we could roll backwards or forwards depending on whether we're on a slope or not. So what you do is you just hold it and you just pull it up slightly, just to make sure that it doesn't rise anymore. So if it's not on properly, it will do that. Okay, if it is on properly, it won't do that, and I'll put a little video on that in a second. So we've got a door, handbrake. That's just so the car doesn't roll, because we're going to be moving around, and by moving around we might jog it, and if it's not on properly it could roll. The instructor should have made sure that was on, but it's your responsibility now. Once you're in this seat, it's all your responsibility. It's up to you to make sure the car is safe. Okay, don't rely on your instructor, even though you should and could and can. It is down to you now, because he's not going to be there forever, she's not going to be there forever, and you're going to be on your own at some point, so that's quite important. So we've got door, handbrake. Now we're going to do the seat. The seat comes in lots of different bits. So the first thing we're going to do is the bottom of the seat, so the bit that goes backwards and forwards. So a good idea at this point, you can't really see off camera, I'm going to use my right hand, because the lever on this car is on the left underneath, but your instructor will tell you where the lever is. You put the opposite hand on the wheel and just brace it slightly. You lift that lever up, and then you see you can run backwards and forwards. Okay, so just going to go back there and stop, and then we must make sure when we stop it, give it a little jig to make sure it's in place, because again it might not be quite in the catch. Let's see if I can do that. And then see, that wasn't quite in the catch, and if it's not in the catch and you pull away and stop, you could end up surprising yourself. So we don't want any of these little surprises. We don't do surprises on the first lesson. So that's in place, and the way we know it's in the right place, the bottom of the seat, is by putting our left foot on the left pedal, which is the clutch, but we'll come on to that, all the way down to the floor. And by doing that, and we've got a slight bend in our knee, we're not stretching, we're not sitting out the seat, so it bumps right back in the seat. We've not got a stretch, it just feels comfortable. Then don't worry about that. Don't worry about the steering wheel, because we can adjust that. As long as you're not stretching to put it all the way down, because the clutch needs to go all the way down, and you're not, you know, it's not got a great bend in it, so you're not like that. But that's absolutely fine. So that's the bottom of the seat. The next thing that we can adjust at this point, we could always adjust the steering wheel at this point, and with the steering wheel we need to make sure that we can see all the dials on the screen through here, through the hole, and again I'll put a picture of that up. You can see all the dials, and that we're not banging our knee when we bring our leg up, so it's a good time to adjust that. On this car there's a lever underneath, you pull it and you can take the seat belt, I'm talking about the steering wheel up and down. Okay. Most cars can do that and make sure that goes back in, and again give it a wobble to make sure it's not going to suddenly fall down when you pull away. So that's part of the seat, and at that point I just chuck in the other SB in the steering wheel. Your instructor might do the steering wheel a bit later, doesn't really matter. I prefer to do it at this point because I think it's relevant to the leg. Now we're going to adjust the rake of the seat, so the back of the seat, so you can see this bit moving here. And I do this so I can reach the steering wheel. And a good way of doing it is to put your wrists, so this part, on top of the wheel, to make sure you're not coming out the seat. So I'm not leaning out the seat, I'm still back in the seat. I can touch with my wrists, therefore when I put my hands on there, I've got a nice movement all the way around the steering wheel, and there's no problems at all there. I can feel it, and I'm not got a really like that, and I'm not stretching like that, so it's just nice and comfortable. See that nice slight bend in my elbows. Okay, so that's the rake of the seat, and you can backwards and forwards as need be. Some seats also go up and down, like that. You may need to adjust that as well, but you may adjust the steering wheel. Get your instructor to help you there, because you could be there for an hour adjusting it around, so that will help you with that. That gives you some basic ideas. The next thing, and probably the most important thing, is the head restraint for this thing here. If it's all the way down, and most instructors will put it all the way down in the first lesson, just so it's easy for you to adjust, because it's difficult to get down, it's easy to get up. Most of them go up like a throw-in, so you put your hands on either side and just put it up like that. Okay, I'm quite tall, so I have it all the way up normally. The way I can tell is my ears are in the middle. I can see that because I can see the camera. But if you haven't got a camera there, you could use the mirror, or you could put your hand at the back of your head like that, lean back, and if your hand goes onto the head restraint, then you know the back of your head would, and that the idea of this is to stop whiplash injuries, so your head doesn't fling over the back of the seat, and give you a whiplash injury. So that's got to be set properly. If it's too high, you could end up going between the headrest and getting your head stuck there. If it's too low, you could whip your neck back and cause yourself quite a nasty injury there. So it's quite important, head restraint. So we're not going to lean back and drive like that. It's literally there if we get thrown back in an accident. Ow. See? So just always check that and make sure that's in place. So we've done the door, the handbrake, the seat, the steering. The next S is the seat belt. Okay, teaching suck eggs a bit here, but there's some things that I think are very useful to know. So we've got the seat belt here, you can see it coming across. See, I'm pulling it out like that in a nice smooth movement, because if you put it out quickly, I'm not going to do it now, it gets caught like that. Then it needs to go all the way back again to come back again. All the way through and across and into the thing. Can you hear that? It's important You can hear that? I'm just giving it a wobble, and I'm not pulling this to give it a wobble, because I'll drop yourself. I'm pulling the actual buckle itself, because they have been known to ping out. So make sure, remember these cars are being used a lot, so they can wear. So just give it a pull, just to make sure. I'm not trying to frighten you and give you all the things that can go wrong, but you need to know them so we can get rid of them, okay? So the next thing that could go wrong is you could have a twist in your seatbelt like that. And if you've got a twist like that and it's got that flat edge, if you were to have an accident, we're not going to on your first lesson, trust me, you won't, but if you were, then that could cut into you. So nice and flat, so all the areas across your tummy, or across the bottom of your tummy, on your waist really, there, and no twists in it at all. Always worth having a check, particularly when you get your own car or getting a friend's car, that there's no cuts in it and there's no problems with it. It's not fraying or anything like that, because that can make it break when you crash. Instructor's car should obviously be in good condition, but your responsibility, so make sure. Okay, so there are some responsibilities that come with the seatbelt. So, a bit of theory now. The rules are that you must wear the seatbelt at all times, regardless of what age you are. Certain ages have to have booster seats and relevant child seats, etc. But I'll let you look those up, because it's that's going to be part of your theory. So look those up. But the basic rules with seatbelts is anyone under 14, so 13 or under, it's your responsibility as the driver to make sure they have their seatbelts on. And if they don't, you're paying a fine, okay? More important than the fine, I don't know if you've seen the advert, I'll try and find it and put it on underneath this video, it's a YouTube clip, is the killer in the back. Basically, a lot of people die from the person in the back not having a seatbelt on and coming flinging forward and killing the driver or the passenger in the front. If the passenger in the front hasn't got their seatbelt on, and you would have an accident, particularly a side impact, they would get thrown onto you at the speed the other car hits them. So if you get hit by 60 miles an hour, they come at you at 60 miles an hour, because the momentum gets transferred, and they're going to kill you, basically. So it's your legal responsibility to make sure that everyone 13 or under wears a seatbelt. Everyone 14 and over, it's their responsibility, and the fine is theirs, but still have that moral responsibility. So I would say that if they're not wearing a seatbelt, they don't get a ride. That's the rules in my car, and I would advise that you do the same rules, okay, because it is your life that's in danger. It sounds very dramatic, but it does happen. It does happen to the younger age group. So, you know, have a rule in your car that no seatbelt, no ride. Most people will respect that. If they don't, they get in the bus, aren't they? Better than get in the bus than get in the ambulance, okay? So, a little lecture over and done with, but quite an important one, okay? So, that's the seatbelt. So we got, what have we got? Forgotten already. Doors, handbrake, seat, steering, seatbelt. Next thing is the mirrors. Okay, so we've got the mirrors up here. Right, I'll show you another video for these, but I'll talk to them on camera, and then I'll show you how they set up, okay? So we've got this one here. Some call it the interior, the rear view mirror. Doesn't really matter what we call it. It's important to see that I use one hand, but preferably the left one, because I don't lean out my seat. Because if I lean out my seat and do all this and adjust it, and I go back again, I'll then see a different picture. So I've got to sit in the position I'm going to drive in. Use my left hand and keep it far to the left as possible, so I'm not covering the glass with my hand, certainly not touching the glass, because any fingerprints will make a difference of when at night time you won't be able to see what's behind you in that very well, and it can distort the picture a bit. So what we're looking basically to do is outline the back window. So the top of the window and top of the mirror, the bottom of the window and bottom of the mirror, the left of the window in the left as I look at it, and the right in the right there. Depends which way you're looking at it, but we're basically having an outline of the mirror, the back window in our mirror, so we can see the whole. Okay, here I can see this fitted with dual controls at the bottom, and I can see just the top of the window, and I can actually see my left ear here. I don't want to be looking at me, so most I want to see of me is my left ear, and maybe just on my case my side of my glasses, because that gives you the best vision. Then if you're looking at yourself, you're losing a bit of vision to the left hand side or behind you there. So now we come on to the side windows. Some people call them wing mirrors, but they're not wing mirrors anymore. They're side mirrors because they're on the side and not the wing. Who cares? We've got one on the right and left here. We're setting them up so we can see about 10 to 20% of the mirror is car, and I'll show you a picture of this in a second, and the rest is down the street. So it's not looking up at the air, it's not looking down at the floor, it's just looking generally out to the back and to the side of the car, and the same with this one here. Okay, and that's quite important, because if you don't have that vision, you could miss things, and we call that a blind spot. But there'll be another video on mirrors particularly, which will cover the blind spots more and show little videos of blind spots and things. But it's important to have these set up so you can see them from where you're sitting, like I am now, okay? So you're not having to lean forward, lean back, or go like this malarkey, because you're taking you off the road for too long. It's just a quick glance like that. And don't worry about doing quick glances in the mirror, because your instructor and the examiner will see those, so that's not an issue. And the final bit on mirrors for now is the different types of glass. So that's difficult to show here, but basically the internal mirror, or the middle mirror, is flat glass. So what you see is what you get. So if I look in there now, I can see a postbox up the road. If I look behind me, the postbox looks the same distance. So we always use that mirror first to tell us how far away things are, so we can make judgments. If I look now in the side mirrors, that postbox looks a lot further away. So unless it's walking around, which I doubt, then there's something going on there. And what's going on is the glass. The glass is slightly curved, which is called convex glass, and that makes things look further away than they actually are, so they're closer than they look. Okay, so they look small, so they look further away, but they can't be moving, so they must be closer than they look. Very important for things like cyclists and motorcyclists. If you see them in this side mirror, they're going to be closer than you think, so you need to make a judgment on that. Your instructor will help you with that. But see them in there first, get an idea of the distance, see them in there. We tend to take 2 looks in the side mirrors quite often, and if they're closer the second time than the first time, they're catching us up, and we'll probably let them go before we turn or anything like that. So really be aware of the different types of glass. So things in the side mirrors look further away than they actually are, so they're closer than they look. Okay. So that's the first part of your first lesson, and that's why it's quite important, I think, to watch this video, because then you can crack through that pretty quickly, get to the bit you really want to do, which is drive. But if you haven't got all this set up right, then the driving is not going to work very well. If you can't get to the pedals, etc., you can't get the clutch all the way down, you're uncomfortable in your seat, you can't see in the mirrors, it's not going to go right anyway. So all this stuff is important.